Hey everyone, so I wanted to make a video just about being an acoustic worship guitar player. So maybe you're interested in playing at church, or you have been playing at church, or this is a direction you're thinking maybe I want to do this more often, like, doing a YouTube thing or as like a career type option. And you're just sort of trying to feel it out, figure out what that means, and hopefully I can give you some insight from my own experience as to just some considerations as far as getting into this, or some preparations in getting into this. One of the first things that I think is important to talk about is the heart behind why you'd want to be able to play. And as someone who's led a lot of different worship teams in the past, you can find usually two different kinds of people who want to play worship music. You get people who just, they want to be able to volunteer and help out and be part of that process, and that's great, and I hope that's where you are. And then you get other people who, like in anything, feel like they have some ability or some skill, and they want to be able to show that to other people. Well, in that case, you're really trying to get recognition for yourself, right? You're hoping that people notice your ability and give you the credit, give feedback to you, to praise you for what you're doing. And I'm not saying that this is the end of the road for you, if that's where you're at, if you've like truly sat down and evaluated yourself and thought, yeah, you know what, maybe I want to do this because I want people to know I play guitar, or I want people to see the time and the effort I've put into it. That's it's not the end of the road, but it's a good opportunity for you to just to sit and pray and ask the Lord to change your perspective on why you want to be part of a worship team. And it's not easy, but if your heart is in the wrong place getting into it, it doesn't just affect you being able to engage in worship, but it actually keeps you from being able to lead other people into worship effectively as well. And the reason I say that is because you are potentially trying to bring the focus to yourself, which means it's also going to be a distraction for people in a congregation or people who are there that you are supposed to be leading into worship. You're trying to draw their focus, their attention on what you're doing, which takes their eyes and their focus off of actually singing these songs to the Lord. So that's sort of the first thing that I think is important to just talk about when we discuss all this. Another thing that's important to discuss is the idea of what worship is, and worship is more than just music. So when you're actually getting into being a worship guitar player, you may not be the person leading the songs. You may just be a guitar player, which is great. It's fine. But that doesn't mean that you're any less of a leader in leading people into musical worship. And in some cases, that may mean you're praying for people beforehand, just praying for the team, praying for the people who are going to be there singing with you, asking the Lord to keep focus on Him, and even for yourself to humble yourself in that time to keep your own focus on Him. And it's good to remember that it's not just music that is the only form of worship, because that again fuels this idea that somehow you are occupying a special position where other people who maybe don't have musical ability are now unable to engage in worshiping the Lord in the same way that you can, right? And that's just not true. The Lord doesn't look at the quality of your voice. He looks at your heart. And it does help to be able to play well and to be able to keep a distraction-free environment. But it's also important to remember that all children of God are able to engage in the worship of the Lord through prayer, through adoration, and through reading of the Word, through the life that they live. It's not just music that is the only form of worship or the highest form of worship, or however that's been a bit distorted in our current culture today. So those things are good to remember. As far as like practical guitar playing stuff, I think there's a few things that are good to know. One is it is important to hone your musical ability, right? To work on that, to develop your ability to play your instrument. So being able to strum well, And strum in time is a big deal. And I made a video about that already, so I'm not going to go into a lot of detail. I'll make sure that that's linked for you so you can check that out. But strumming is going to be primarily on an acoustic guitar, your main wheelhouse of what you're doing to help continue to keep a song going. And there's really two different kinds of worship teams that you can find yourself on. So it's good to sit and kind of evaluate which one you're part of, right? There's teams that tend to be more guitar driven, meaning that your guitar is the instrument that's usually starting a song. So when you're looking at going, okay, how are we going to get into this? Usually the guitar player, either acoustic or electric, is going to get the song started. Or you're more of a piano-driven team, which your piano player is going to be the person who's usually starting off the song, setting the tempo and all of that. So figuring that out is going to be another thing that's just going to help you realize where you kind of fit within the team dynamic. If it's a piano-driven team, then mostly what you're doing is you're helping support from the rhythm side of the team, meaning you become... it's more important for you to lock in with your drummer and your bass player to hold that rhythm together. And most of your strumming now just becomes a timekeeping sort of rhythmic element of the team. And if you're more of a guitar-driven worship team, then that allows you to kind of have a bit more freedom in how you work through some things. So let's say you're responsible for getting into songs. You could start off with just strumming, that's fine, right? Like there we go, we're right into the song. You could start with finger picking. And then that'll allow you to get kind of dynamically get into a song a little bit lower or change the sort of feel of the song. You also have the opportunity to even play certain parts. So let's say you look at Jesus Paid It All, right? You have an actual part. To intro that song. And that gives you the ability now to work on what you're doing, work on your own skills and ability to be able to play an intro part like that is recognizable for the song, but is helpful to the rest of the team and your vocalists and whoever else to know what's actually going to happen. If you are on a guitar-driven team, that's going to be something that may push you a bit more, right? So instead of just being like primarily a strumming guitar player or a finger-picking guitar player, you are going to have to learn some of those parts that are going to add to a song that are going to help just carry portions of that song that need that intro part to be played. So that's also a few considerations. You just got to know what kind of team that you're actually on. Finger picking is going to be a big portion of this as well. And I've also created a video recently on finger picking, so it's important to look into that and have a good handle on finger picking. And the reason is because it's not just intros sometimes that we find that's useful for. Sometimes we also have lower dynamic portions of the song. So especially with a guitar driven team, you may get to like a bridge or the intro into a bridge, and you've got to drop the dynamics of the song so that you have somewhere to build again, right? Or this could be, in some churches you actually have people who will play under prayers, or when you're taking communion together, or there's just portions of the service that you may want music that sort of sits underneath just to keep the flow of the service going. And in that case, being able to finger pick is just another option to add in, because sometimes if you're distributing the elements for a communion, you don't necessarily need someone who's going to be really chugging away on their guitar, right? But if you've got someone just in the background sort of adding a bit of that like ambient tone, setting the tone of that time musically, then it'll lend a bit more to that period of time than just strumming through. So that's going to be an important thing too. Another thing to really get a good handle on is dynamics even through strumming. So you may have at the beginning of when you're playing, it may not be easy for you to actually change your dynamic when you're strumming, right? Everything may be just one volume. And in faster songs, that may work, but if you're getting into other songs, like we said before, if you struggle a bit with finger picking, maybe that's not an option for you right now. Being able to dynamically lower the volume of a song on your guitar is going to actually help build a song through, because not every song is going to be good with, full tilt strumming all the way through the song. So you may have a portion that is a bit louder, and then you want to drop it down. So working on actually doing a more of a light, careful strumming here is going to be a big help to you. And one thing that I do with that is generally if I'm just strumming fully, when I hold the pick, I'm holding it with a pretty good grip, because I don't want to drop it while I'm strumming hard against the strings. But then when I go lighter dynamically, I actually loosen up my grip on the pick. So now, instead of, and I'll try and get this as close as I can for you. So this is hard, where the pick doesn't have a lot of flex to it. And then if I'm going lighter, you can see how the pick itself is almost now just gliding or bouncing across the strings. So I have a much lighter grip on this pick itself, and that allows me to achieve that lower dynamic sound. I'm also taking the pick, and instead of trying to get further into the strings, so again, if you see where the pick is there against the strings, that's kind of where I'd be strumming if it's hard. If I'm strumming light, I'm almost trying to just to touch the tip of the pick against those strings to make it as little bit of contact or a lot less contact to get me to that lower dynamic sound. So that's an important thing as well. Work on your dynamics, work on your finger picking, work on playing lead parts if you're more of a guitar driven team, and then another big thing just for your own personal ability to engage with the songs is learning to play guitar in a way that's really comfortable. Like the more practice time you put in, the more comfortable you're going to be playing. The less you're going to have to focus on what your strumming hand is doing and what your actual fingering hand is doing. Because the more focus you have on doing this, the less focus you have on actually being engaged in that time of musical worship with everyone else. So, and this is not like a criticism in the same way as trying to draw attention to yourself. This is actually just something that everyone needs to work on. And I've even been guilty of this, later on in my actual guitar playing journey, where there's something else that's distracting you from being able to actually focus on the words that you're singing. And you get to the end of a set and you think to yourself, I barely even was truly singing these songs to the Lord. I was just trying to keep the song on track or play what I'm doing because I didn't put enough practice time in to be really comfortable with what I was doing. So I had to put a lot more mental power into paying attention to what was being played. So the more that you can be comfortable with what's happening here, the less you have to focus on it, and the more you can actually engage with the music just mentally. So if that means changing up chords so you're not playing full chords, then that's a big thing. One of my first guitar videos was all about the easier way to play chord shapes to make that work, and to use a capo, one of these tools here, so that you're not trying to play every single chord that's possible. You're just playing a few different chord shapes and capoing where you need it. So you can check that video out as well if that's going to help you along with your journey. So that's going to be a big thing, right? I think just as Christians, it's always good to look back at the Bible and be encouraged that way as far as getting into our worship time. So I just pulled up a few verses here where it talks about, like in Hebrews 13:15, it says, it's talking about sacrifices that are pleasing to God, right? And it says, through him then let us continually offer up a sacrifice of praise to God. That is the fruit of lips that acknowledge his name. So for some of us, we're guitar players, but we're not singers. However, I think it's good for us to acknowledge, not just in our minds and in our hearts, but even with our lips. And part of this is even encouraging the rest of the congregation to sing along, right? It's oftentimes you see a guitar player, they're just playing guitar. They don't open their mouth the whole time. And being able to sing along with these songs, even if you're a bad singer, that's okay. Because again, it's about the heart of what you're doing. So engaging in those times, singing along with the songs is a big portion of just worshiping the Lord with our lips as well as with our hands. So I would encourage you to work on that even during your own personal practice times as well. If that's not something you're comfortable with, keep working on it, right? And it'll help you even as a musician to understand even dynamics in certain portions of the songs, because as you're singing through, you're going, okay, we're getting to the bridge because I'm singing along, I'm paying attention to the song. I know that dynamically we're making different changes here, but the hope here is more than the playing side, that you're actually engaging with the song itself, that you're singing these songs to the Lord. So that's a good reminder. Colossians 3:16 says, it's talking about putting on the new self, right? Like your old self is dead. That life is gone. You've been saved. You are now putting on the new self in Christ. And it says, let the word of Christ dwell in you richly, teaching and admonishing one another in all wisdom, singing psalms and hymns and spiritual songs with thankfulness in your heart to God. So it's important for us to be in the Word, to be reminding ourselves of who God is, what He has done, and what we should be doing as faithful believers. But on top of that, we are also encouraging other people within our church. And in a lot of cases, we see that worship teams are almost like a separate portion of the church. This happens so often, right? Like the worship team's got their green room or some place that they hang out separate from the church. In some cases, you're almost treated like, a celebrity, like you're the musicians here. And that's again where we have this separation between what worship is and where musical worship fits within that group of things, right? So like I would always try to encourage people in your church, if they start to treat you different because you're on the worship team, be like, hey, look, I'm just here to help with the music side, but we're all worshiping together, right? Like this doesn't put us at a different place. And sometimes the stage even does that. Like if you got a stage in your church, that causes separation between you and the people who are just on the floor, right? But you're still as much part of the congregation as they are. So it's important when you talk to people to encourage them in the same way that anyone else in the congregation encourages each other. You are not separate from them. You are not above them. You are all on the same level, right? And encouraging each other with the word, in singing together, and in thanksgiving to the Lord is important when you're part of a congregation. And in doing that outside of your actual playing times helps you to lead people better because you know them, they know you. When you're singing up front and playing your instrument, they are encouraged to engage in that time as well, because you're doing this together as a family of God, as a family of believers. And I think even just going through the Psalms, there's so many Psalms that are just talking about giving worship to the Lord. I wrote down a few of them, and generally it's in the first few verses of the Psalms themselves. You've got like Psalm 29, Psalm 34, Psalm 75, Psalm 95, Psalm 96, Psalm 99, Psalm 100, Psalm 103, Psalm 122, Psalm 145. It's somewhere that's good to go, to just encourage you as you're reading other people in the Bible, their struggles, and they turn to the Lord and they're worshiping Him still, right? They're giving Him thanks, even in times of trial and struggle, or in times of celebration. They're giving that glory, they're giving that worship back to the Lord. So that's what we're doing. We're doing it through songs and through our instruments, and they're doing it through the words that we're reading, which in some cases are songs themselves anyway. But it's important for us to remember just where we fit in that whole mix. We're still part of the church. We are still just a congregation member, and what we are doing when we are playing on a team is just helping make the music happen so that we have something to follow. But we are leading people in that time. We are not separate from them, and we are joining them in that musical worship of the Lord. So I hope that that all makes sense. I hope that that is an encouragement to you as you hear that, and in some cases that it's a correction, that you are thinking to yourself, you know what, it's important for me to prioritize certain things over, what I have been, to make sure that I'm prepared to engage in being part of a worship team, being a worship guitar player. And it's not always easy. We see a lot of times in church culture that people who are part of worship teams or people who are part of church leadership, they have a fall in their actual faith. They fail as a leader because of the praises that people within the congregation give them, right? So it's also just a reminder to you that whether you're a acoustic guitar player or maybe you're leading as well as playing guitar, like, you need to continually humble yourself and pray to the Lord to keep you humble, because it's easy for people's words and the way that they treat you to make you even believe that you're at a different place than other people in the congregation. And again, that's just not true. So work on those skills of actually playing your instrument well, of giving yourself enough, like as many tools as you can, and then hopefully when you're getting together to worship with the congregation, that those things become something that you can do without putting too much focus on, and that you're not trying to draw focus to yourself, but you're just worshiping the Lord with your brothers and sisters in the congregation. And another thing that's good for you to do is, it's good to experiment with different things, to try stuff out when you're having your rehearsal times on your own or with your team. And that's okay. Like, take that time to try something out to see if it works. And if it's drawing too much attention to yourself, then hey, it may sound cool, it may work with the song, but it may not be the appropriate thing to play in a church setting, in a congregational setting, if it's going to draw people's focus to just what you are doing. Right? There are intros to songs, there are hooks in songs that are there and people recognize them and they're part of the song. But when they become a distraction from actually engaging with the Lord, and now people are just thinking of what a good player you are, or it's just drawing focus away from the Lord, then it's not helpful. It's actually working counter to what we want to do. So hopefully this has again just been a reminder for you in that it's our job to get up there, to facilitate the playing of the song, and then to get out of the way to allow the Holy Spirit to work in the lives of the children of God, to worship God wholeheartedly without the team getting in the way of that at all. Right? We're just laying down the foundation of the music, setting a time for people to follow as far as tempo. And then we're trying as best as we can to get out of the way of that, so we're not a distraction to anyone within our congregation, within our family of the Lord. And hopefully we can do that. We can just worship the Lord together through music with all of our hearts, and so can our brothers and sisters in the congregation. So yeah, so that's all I wanted to say on this. If that's something that you're looking forward to in playing acoustic guitar at a church or within a worship team, or even as like a career choice, just continue to spend time in the Word, continue to ask the Lord to humble you, and remember where you fit within that world, within that environment. So I hope that's been helpful. I hope that there's been stuff to learn from this. And if you have any questions about this at all, please always feel free to just write them in the comment section, and I'd be happy to try to address them as best as I can. But thank you so much for being here today, and as always, love you guys.